Hey you, I see you. I know you feel ignored, small, insignificant, but I see you. I've lived here for years. I've seen tenants come and go. I saw their lives. I watched their moments. None have intrigued me like you. None have felt things like you do. None have cried the way you do. None have lived like you. I see your passion. I see your sorrow. I see your joy. I see you. I hear you. Your thoughts, your feelings, the pain you scream into these walls.
Hello, Lily.
There we go.
Nice to meet you.
Lovely to meet you.
Okay, cool. So you're from Westgate, aren't you?
Yeah. I've been in Westgate about 5 years. I was in Margate before, and then we had to move here after a house fire. But
Yeah.
kind of I've kind of lived between Margate and Birchington my entire life, not been anywhere else.
Oh, right. Okay. So you've always been local.
Yeah, always been local.
Okay. So you responded to my advert put out. I had this idea about doing a podcast about poetry. Just
Yeah, my mum actually found it and she sent it to me and she was like, "You would love to do something like this. Here you go." And I was like, "Perfect. Thanks, mum."
excellent. Okay. So what sparked your initial interest in poetry?
I think for me, I was coming towards the end of my first queer relationship, and we both knew it was ending, and I was really struggling with it, and I just picked up a pen one day and was like, I'm just going to write how I feel about it, and I've been writing since then. I'm fairly new to poetry. I've been writing for about 2 years, but yeah, as soon as I started, I just couldn't stop.
It's amazing, isn't it? It can be quite
Yeah.
therapeutic.
It's absolutely brilliant. Like over the span of the last 2 years, I've had so many different things where I think that if I didn't have poetry, I don't know what I would have done with myself. It's just like such a great, it passes the time and it's so like, as you said, it's so therapeutic.
Have there been any poets that you've been inspired or artists you've been inspired by, or did they just come naturally for you?
Most of my poems come naturally. I don't ever really have to like think about them. They literally just start like they just start pouring out, and I just have to try and catch them as they're pouring out. But I'm really inspired by Rupi Kaur. She was the first poetry book that I ever owned, and I have all of her books. But I'm also, at the moment, I'm really inspired by, there's a few local poets that I see when I go to like different poetry events. And there's a poem by Philip Larkin called This Be the Verse. And I can't explain how like obsessed I am with it. I just really love it.
Okay, great. So, what was the first poem that you feel really? Do you remember the first poem you felt truly proud of?
First poem I felt truly proud of. The first poem I felt truly proud of is the first poem in my book. I've got a book coming out soon. And it's the first one to appear. It doesn't have a name. How does it go? It's a very short poem about kind of holding someone's heart in your hands and being delicate with it. And I wrote that, and every time I reread it, it's kind of like my reassurance to myself that I am a good writer.
So, is there any other sort of what can I say? Is there any other kind of arts that you feel inspired by that's caused you to write poetry?
I'm a very, very creative person. I'm very active in theatre, and I volunteer at a local school, and I'm their drama technician. I'm very like anything creative that I can kind of get my hands on, I'm just straight into it, which I think is why I really love poetry, is because it's an anywhere sort of craft. I'll randomly stop on a walk and I'll find the nearest bench and I'll be like, I have to quickly get this down, or on the bus on the way home, or like you can pick up poetry anywhere. I make a lot of bracelets, kind of, yeah, literally anything creative that I can do, I'm doing in some way.
I've always found, strangely, paradoxically, the the reason to want to write a poem at a particular time has been when something really disturbing has been going on in my life. Or I've been particularly stressed about something or upset about something, and it's it kind of when it builds up and it's really painful inside. I get to the point where I've just got to write it down.
I find a similar sort of thing. I think mine is more anytime I feel an intense emotion. So, like, I have some of my favorite poems are like the beautiful things that I write about my friends and like coming home after spending time with them and being like, I really, really appreciate the people in my life. And I write them a poem and it's just like, I think they're some of my best poems because I think you can, like, the majority of my work is very sad. I write a lot on like heartbreak and that sort of thing. But I think my favorite work is those like when you have those periods of really intense joy, and then you're suddenly like, I have to write something about this. Those are my best pieces.
So that's actually about recording a specific memory. One of the things I like in terms of therapy, it's one of the things, with the work I've done when I was working, was I'd often say to people, to try to recall when you're somewhere that's really nice, perhaps you're on holiday somewhere or by the beach or whatever it is, try and sear that memory. So, remember what you can smell, what you can see, what you can taste. And I kind of did that years and years ago when I was on holiday with the family. I think I had a really good time here without sort of it being advised to me. I just did that spontaneously. And recalling those memories always took me to a nice place, even when things weren't going quite so well. I could just recall that from a memory. So I think what, like you're saying, is actually that ability to be able to write it down.
Yeah.
Then it's there forever, isn't it?
I think poetry is just such a brilliant form of mindfulness because I think like I love being present and in the moment, but it's sometimes difficult to remember to sometimes take a deep breath and actually take in what you're experiencing. And poetry, as soon as I sit down and write poetry, I'm forced to be mindful. I'm forced to think about how do I feel right now? And I think it's made me a more calm person because I can instantly switch into okay, what could I smell in that moment? Even
Mm.
if I didn't think about it at the time and I come to write a poem about it a week later, I can still turn around and be like, okay, try and describe everything that happened at that moment. And it just really is grounding.
What's your preferred way of writing your poetry? I mean, are you typing on the computer or on your phone, or are you simply going back to the old-fashioned way of having a notebook and a pen?
My preferred method is notebook and pen. I think it's just got something that typing doesn't have. It feels a bit more personal. And I think you can, in terms of handwriting, I can tell the difference between an angry or sad poem of mine and a happy poem of mine because the handwriting looks entirely different. But notepad and pen isn't always practical, especially being out and about. And so a lot of my stuff is typed, usually on my phone, but then I don't like losing any of my poetry. So I typically, every so often, I'll type up everything that I've got on paper and everything on my phone, and it's all on my laptop. So I have like a big kind of archive.
Way to make sure we don't lose it, isn't it?
Yep. I'm too forgetful. I'll leave a notebook somewhere and I'll never find it again.
Yeah, sound a bit like me. Okay. Was there any kind of subjects that you're drawn to repeatedly?
I'm definitely drawn to like themes of like heartbreak. I think a lot of mine are, I'd say I'm quite like naturey, like kind of looking at elements. I've got a fair few written about fire or earth and that sort of thing, but I really want to explore more philosophy. So I did the subject in school and I absolutely loved it. And I have a few pieces that are a bit philosophical, but I think my love of poetry comes from my love of philosophy and my love of words. And I think that, I don't know, I like the thought of being able to kind of continue that on.
How important is sound and rhythm with your poetry, would you say?
I'd say so I post a lot of my poetry online, but there's some pieces that I have to wait to post because some of them really rely on how they're spoken to make sense.
Yeah.
But I don't really tend to have kind of like a strict format of how I write my poetry. So I don't count syllables or make sure that it rhymes or count lines. It just kind of, I just write how I'm feeling at the time or I write what I want to say. And I think it always ends up coming out. I think every time, like, I really love poetry that is like in some sort of form, whether it rhymes, whether it's like how it sounds. And I really love it. But every time I've tried to do it, it just doesn't sound authentic. Sounds like I've tried too hard to be a poet.
It's like sounds like to me that you write with integrity and you're writing exactly how it feels for you. It's not trying to be somebody else or trying to express something that's not necessarily real or trying to actually get someone else to listen to it. It's sometimes it's
Yeah.
just for ourselves, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you get much feedback from your poetry that you've
I go to this event every month where I read my poetry, which is Something Borrowed by Harry Baker. It's an absolutely brilliant event. And I can kind of gauge, like, I don't ever really ask for feedback or kind of check in with anyone, but I think you can kind of gauge how well a poem does as to the audience's kind of response. And I post, as I said, I post a lot of it online, and I can kind of roughly tell by like engagement as to how well a poem's done. But typically, I've got a lot of English literature people in my life. So
right?
typically, if I'm ever unsure and I'm ever like, I'm not really sure this poem works or it just doesn't sound right, I zip it across to them.
Sounds to me like you use your intuition.
Yeah. I
Okay.
think if I read it back, I can hear it in my, as soon as I hear it out loud, I can kind of gauge myself as to whether like this sounds like a piece that I would write. I think that's my main goal is not trying to write something that is perfect or something that other people would approve of as poetry. I just write to how I feel.
When you sent me a couple of your poems, was it kind of had an effect on me straight away because I could really feel the intensity of it and the honesty of it. And I also thought a couple of the poems that you sent were just accidentally they were quite kind of similar sort of style, similar kind of subject to talk about. Because I just thought the couple of ones I wrote were a little bit on the dark side. Sometimes you just need to get that stuff out, don't you?
Yeah,
So I really felt a connection with you when I read your stuff.
thank you.
Okay, now you said you go to poetry slams. What else have we got to do? Okay. Do you have a favourite word you like to use?
I don't think I have one specific favorite word, but I really love to find words that people don't typically know the meaning of to
Right.
write it into a poem. So I try and find words that I don't know the meaning of, that I then have to research and then kind of find it. So I think my favorite one recently, one of the first times that I started doing that was the word petrichor. And then my most recent one is a poem that I'm very proud of. Quickly find it for you because it's a brilliant word. Simulacrum. It's kind of the idea, as far as I can remember, it's the idea that no one can have an objective view on
Yeah,
anything. And I really love that word.
that sounds beautiful. Okay, so I was just thinking about poets that we poetry that we've listened to that we know. I mean, it's for one of my favourites is Rudyard Kipling's If, and I find that quite an inspiration for me when times are a bit tough. When things are challenging me. I don't know whether you know that one, do you?
I don't think I know it.
Okay, look it up. It's Rudyard Kipling's If. Quite a
Not down.
famous one. Okay, so I mean, if you could meet any poet living or dead, who do you think that might be, and why would it be?
That is a really good question. I think living, I would have to meet Rupi Kaur. I think her poetry is the reason that I fully got into poetry. It's the reason I kind of like I did start writing on my own, but I think it was because I'd had all of her books to begin with, and I knew the impact that her poetry had on me. And so I write in a very similar way to her. But I would also really love to meet William Blake. Um, I've not looked at enough of his poems to really know anything about him, but he was a big part of my philosophy A level. And any of the poems that I did read of his, I knew that I just really loved them.
Another one that another well, it's not necessarily a poet, but a famous person, and her writing gets attributed often to the wrong person, is someone called Marianne Williamson. I don't know whether you come across her in the past.
I don't think I've come across her either.
It's another one to look out for. She writes about not hiding your light under a bushel. That that we're all beautiful as we are, and who's anybody to say that we should hide ourselves away? Which
Yeah.
that's to kind of paraphrase what the poem's about. Okay, be nice to give the opportunity to choose some poems of your own
Mhm.
that you'd like to read out that we can share with people that will go on the podcast. So far away, Lily.
There was one that you mentioned that when I emailed you. Let's pull that one up. And then I'll also find the first one in my book, the one that I'm most proud of. There we go. Let's have a look. It was one called I See You, wasn't it? Yeah. Hey you, I see you. I know you feel ignored, small, insignificant, but I see you. I've lived here for years. I've seen tenants come and go. I saw their lives. I watched their moments. None have intrigued me like you. None have felt things like you do. None have cried the way you do. None have lived like you. I see your passion. I see your sorrow. I see your joy. I see you. I hear you. Your thoughts, your feelings, the pain you scream into these walls. It echoes along the wall, rattles the windows, shakes the chandeliers. But it always leaves. It catches on the breeze and washes away in the rain. You feel lonely, desperate, hopeless. But I am here. I see you. I hear you. I feel you. Okay, there's I see you.
Beautiful. Thank you.
I love that one. I think that's such a, it's so, I think when I wrote it, it was so different to what I'd ever written before. So that's another one that I go back to. And I think that like, oh, just I'd love to like it's one that I wanted to post online when I first started posting things. But I think it's one of those ones that it just sounds better being read. It's such a good one.
Absolutely. And you read it beautifully as well.
Thank you.
Let's go for another one.
This one's quite a short one. This is the first one in my book that I go back to whenever I kind of think that I'm not a very good poet. When the words fail me, I take my beating heart out of my chest, raw and honest, place it in your hands, and hope you hear what she has to say.
Beautiful.
Well, this one is called Dying Leaves. They do travel, but with each morning you rise at dawn to mourn more leaves every day, the more broken you will become, until all of your pieces tumble across the grass and your only hope is that they will fit within the bags underneath your eyes. The leaves will not stop falling, and the winter will not hurry by, but you will stop noticing the signs of death and instead see the muted tones of burnt oranges and deep reds. And you will listen, and they will sing to you in a way you have never heard music sound before. That's another good one.
I'll read you one of mine, which I think I sent to you. It's one of my angry ones.
Looking forward to it.
Why, oh why do you get me down? Fear breaks in the ether, brings upon a frown. Gonna go round and go to town on you. When the storm breaks, what will forsake? Those who you blame for your shame. It's not the colour you see, it's the pain indeed. Can you see me bleed inside? Get out of my face. This is not the place for you to light your flame. That is just so insane. Go. Go, please leave me alone and atone. You can have the time. Just leave me alone.
When I read that, like the difference between reading it and hearing it is so different because I think hearing you read it, I really felt the emotion a lot more. Like it just, like hearing you actually read it in the way that you wrote it at the time is just like, that's what I love about poetry.
Yeah, if it's because something's really bothered me, or something's really on my mind, or perhaps sometimes something keeps you awake and you can't sleep, and it's often as a result of distress. But I think that often happens with a lot of music and poetry and art comes out of
Yeah.
people's distress.
Yeah,
Oh,
I've got it.
you read it. You read it. Let's see your interpretation of it. It'd be lovely to hear.
You said who is, right?
Who is?
Yeah. Who is the child with no voice, lost and unseen, a watermark of tear, full of fear, neglected and broken, missing and unknown? Who will atone? Where is the space, full of grace, to heal? Who is the child? I love that one.
Thank you.
It's so like, it's just so descriptive without actually giving a clear image. I think it means that anytime you read that, the image that you get from it could be something entirely different.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be entirely confessional, does it?
Yeah, exactly. It's almost like half confessional.
Yeah. Yeah. And it can mean anything to anybody, associate with their own stuff. That my ones that I've written. That one's my favourite by a long way. It just looked really short and concise. And
Yeah,
I think, sometimes poetry doesn't necessarily fit lyrics for a song because
yeah,
because of the tempo. And that's probably why I reckon that's probably why poetry is its own genre. It doesn't have to fit what's going on musically, does it?
I think poetry is just because it's such a vast thing, it's just such like a brilliant art form. I think there's a quote, I can't remember who said it, but it's something about art is supposed to comfort the disturbed and disturb the comforted. Just the way that poetry is just so like I think especially when you're writing about like big traumas or like kind of deep and dark things, it's just like I think poetry relies so heavily on feeling that it's hard to kind of get it into song form because to get it into a song form, it's got to be a bit more strict in terms of like this is how many syllables can be in the line and like that sort of thing, and it has to sound right. Whereas poetry is just, it's kind of like raw song lyrics.
Absolutely. So do you go to these? There's a friend of mine actually that I tried to get hold of. His name's Carl, lives in Birchington. Don't know whether you come
Mm.
across him, Carl Phillips. You're not sure, not you maybe not come across. He's not around so much these days, but he used to settle down. He's met his wife and he's settled down now. And he went to poetry slams, and
Yeah,
we've always got this little story. This again was about 10 years ago. I was up in Margate one day and I saw this advert on a window saying, "Were anybody interested to go along and go to a poetry meeting?" So I texted him and said about it, and he said we always laugh about it when we talk about it. He said it was a Monday night and it was chucking down the rain and it was freezing cold, and he thought, "Shall I go?" And in the end, he said, "Yeah, he did go," and then he wouldn't stop talking about it afterwards because he got to meet an author uh, who encouraged him to write a book. So he
yeah.
wrote a novel afterwards, and he was,
Oh,
again,
wow.
he was just he was really into. He was so excited about it. I mean, we were kind of hoping it might have gone somewhere, but I don't know what happened to it in the end. That wasn't really the point. He gave me a few tips that he picked up from this lady. One of those is don't get it right, get it written.
Yeah,
So it's got to go down because it can always be amended if you kind of
exactly. I think that's something that I struggled with when I first started writing is I would write and then I would never come back to it. It's like I've written that now, it's done. So even if I didn't like it, it was done. So therefore you don't touch it. And I think that's something that I'm kind of slowly learning now is that you don't have to get it right and you don't have to make it perfect because just as soon as you've written it down, there's no time limit on when you can go back and edit it.
yeah. And sometimes the first version of things is the most perfect version anyway,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
it's so real and raw, isn't it?
I
It's
find that
undated.
9 out of 10 times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be. Again, it was something I wrote for a song actually. Or actually, I didn't. I kind of wrote it, and it was inspired, and Paul actually rewrote it for the band. And God, I really love this. It's really great. We're really trying to make something of it. We got other band members involved, and then it became diluted,
Yeah.
and it kind of lost its magic. So I've still got
Yeah.
recording of it, but it went away. Whether about Paul was Paul kind of interpreted very well interpreted about what I was saying, and just changed a few of the words and a few different things, you know. So
Yeah.
that's kind of how that works.
Bit of a too many cooks situation.
You know, I've just started doing a podcast literally in the last couple of months. And the advice of it, doing a podcast is, you know, when people say, what's the best way to do the podcast? Just get on and do it. Just do one and see what
Yeah,
happens. And you learn as you go along. You make mistakes.
exactly.
And then sometimes the rawness of it afterwards becomes the more interesting podcast, you know?
Yep. 100%. I couldn't agree more.
Cool. So did you go to school locally then?
I did. So I went to Chatham and Clarendon in Ramsgate.
Yeah. Right.
So I finished my A levels last year, and I'm currently on a gap year before I go off to university in September.
Okay. Where would you like to go?
I'd like to go to Portsmouth.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting because I've got friends that live down that way. A friend of mine, in those days, it was called Portsmouth Polytechnic before they were
Yeah.
called all universities. So it's more or less the same place. And he did his engineering degree down there and now lives down that way. So it's a lovely
Yeah.
area down there.
It's such a lovely area and it's kind of perfect distance. I can come home if I want, but equally, my family isn't on my doorstep. I can still kind of get a bit of space.
Yeah. Well, we all need that, don't we? Need a bit
Yeah,
of space.
definitely.
Got a chance to go out and see the world and
Exactly. It's so student friendly. Everything is walking distance. Everything is, and I think they have been the friendliest university so far. So I applied last year, but then I decided to take a gap year anyway. And in kind of communicating with all of the other universities, Portsmouth are really quick at getting back to you and so helpful. They're such a friendly university. She said it was called Young Ones,
the young ones.
the Young Ones.
The young ones. It was
Mhm.
it was comedy for its time. It was breaking the mold a little bit from stand-up comics when I was growing up to into something that's a bit more anarchic and
Yeah,
it's very slapstick as well. It's worth looking up if you like
yep.
a bit of comedy. It's worth.
I love a bit of comedy.
I'm a bit of both of that actually. I like a bit of spontaneity.
Yeah.
When I do when I run mindfulness, certainly when I was working or run it at work, I wouldn't plan. I wouldn't over plan.
I had a thought, but I didn't write anything down because I know
Yeah.
if I wrote anything down, I would be, this is how I feel about this, and I'd just be reading it back to you.
I very much like to um, feel the room, if you know what I mean. Like, so if I've
Yeah.
got 5 people in for a mindfulness session, I won't necessarily decide which mindfulness session I'm going to do with them. I
Yeah.
might have an idea, and I tend to find that I'm much better at doing that, doing a speaking a mindfulness session, than I am just speaking like I am now, because now I get tongue tied. But when I'm in that meditative state and my eyes are closed and I'm just feeling the room and getting the sense, it just seems to flow.
Yep.
And it's I
And
don't
it feels a bit more personal as well. Yes. Yes, I definitely feel that.
and you know you can be lonely surrounded by people.
Yep.
Yeah, I've ever had that thing when you it's like you're in a bubble where everybody around you's
Yep.
talking, having a laugh and having a giggle, and then you're just stuck in your own little space. I get that occasionally. I've had it from time to time, but I think sometimes it's about if you listen to other podcasts, I talk an awful lot about. I've talked quite a bit about that sort of thing, about
Yep.
autism and neurodiversity. I've got one coming up on depression, which I'm going to release at some point. But also, I've interviewed people. I've talked about one on Reiki, and obviously I've done a mindfulness, release mindfulness as well.
Yep. I love a bit of Reiki.
Yeah, it's great,
But
isn't it? It's all those traditional Chinese medicines which I got into as well.
yeah,
Acupressure is something I did last year.
I my stepmom does acupuncture
Uh-huh.
and my dad's a bit too squeamish. So I'm always her like little guinea pig. Anytime she's like, I just want to test this out. Like you around? And I'm like, okay. And I love it. It's brilliant.
Get him to check out acupressure because that's no needles.
Yeah, it's just like kind of like thumb. You can
Yeah,
just push it. Yeah.
It's doing the same thing but without needles.
Yeah. He really loves an ear seed. Those little like
Oh yeah.
those little like seeds on a plaster and you put them in different spots.
Okay. Well, listen, Lily, it's been fabulous talking to you.
Yeah, it's been lovely to meet you.
You've definitely got a very well-spoken voice, so
Thank you.
that comes over really nicely. If you enjoyed this podcast, please follow, like, and share. Thank you very much. Martin, Peace Unplugged.